Hey, Paul and Nutrition team. Boy, it's a hot and windy one today. Summer is certainly here. So yesterday we embarked in a new journey in discussing Poet's Spark leadership principles. And we started with the first principle of conviction, which is really belief. It's that unreasonable belief that is required of leadership. And some of you shared with me some of your convictions. I so much appreciate that. They were all great. I agreed with them all, except for one. Dave Pashong said that one of his convictions is that the Vikings will never win the Super Bowl. Can you believe that? Well, Dave, I hope you're wrong on that one, but being a fan as long as I have, you're probably right. But anyway, I just wanted to move on to the second key principle for leadership at Poet, and that is courage. And I think conviction and courage are really kind of related in a lot of ways. And a lot of times when we think of courage, we think of heroic or noble deeds that someone does. And one definition of courage today I think is great. It's the mental or moral strength to venture, persevere, withstand danger, fear, or difficulty. And I think Poet has just an amazing history of showing courage all the way back to the very beginning. When you think about the Bryans building an ethanol plant in the family farm, buying an ethanol plant out of foreclosure in Scotland, South Dakota, those things took courage. Took courage to say yes to building the first ethanol plant when they had never done that. And then starting all these service businesses like Poet Nutrition took courage. Changing the name of the company 13 years ago took a lot of courage. Investing in cellulosic ethanol and new technology took a lot of courage. And then you think about like leaving all the associations and starting Growth Energy and that whole initiative, and just being out front leading the charge for the industry has taken a lot of courage. And then even most recently, after all this success and building these businesses, combining them all together to form this one singular entity took a lot of courage. So I think we can all feel proud that there's been a real history of courage at Poet, and I think courage is such an important trait for a leader to have. But as I was looking at this, I found some other definitions for courage. And if you go back and look at the root word, or where courage really came from, the Latin root is heart. And an older definition of courage is to speak one's mind by telling all one's heart. And I think that too is such an important definition to understand, and it's such an important part of leadership, because that's really that transparency and vulnerability that I think leaders at Poet need to have. And again, to speak one's mind by telling all one's heart, I think oftentimes it's easy to sit there and be silent, but it does take courage to speak up. Maybe it's that new idea that can add value or create a lot of new value, but may be afraid that maybe not everybody else is going to agree, or may come across as a stupid idea. But it takes courage to voice that. It takes courage to have that difficult decision or difficult conversation with a coworker. And it also takes courage to be vulnerable and just admit that you're wrong or that made a mistake. And so I think those are also definitions of courage that are important and critical in leadership. So we'll move on to the next topic tomorrow. Thanks for listening. Have a great day. Be courageous.